Kate, it's autumn and October, but we're together and creating a bit of warmth ourselves. I hope you're happy, well, and we're going to talk about what you've been doing because it's been quite interesting. So welcome to the October show, everybody. Kate and I are here as usual, and we're going to explain who we've got on the program. Who have we got, Kate?
So we've got Mike Bollinger, who is VP of Strategic Initiatives at a company called Cornerstone, that some of you might have heard of. But you're talking to him, not me. Martin Cousins also joins us to talk about another research report. And this one is how work preferences are shifting in the age of Gen AI. Very, very topical. And Jenny Mawala talks to Joe Cook about how the menopause affects everyone in the workplace, not just women. And you and I have a little chat about some of the events that have been going on recently.
So enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
I'm very pleased to catch up again with Mike Bollinger. Mike is the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at Cornerstone On Demand. And I just want to start by saying, tell us a little bit about Cornerstone. It's changing, it has changed, and it's grown. So tell us a little bit about the direction of Cornerstone, how big it is, how many countries it's in, that kind of basic stuff for us to anchor what you're going to say.
Sure. And thanks for having me back, Nigel, as well. I always enjoy these conversations. Cornerstone has evolved very dramatically, and in the last year has talked very specifically about something called Galaxy, which is a workforce agility platform directly tied to addressing the workforce readiness gap. It consists of 140 million users. That number is always growing, 7,000 customers. We're in 180 countries. 50 languages and about 3,500 employees. And the real thing that I like to call out about Cornerstone is the fact that it's very stable. It's been around 20 years. And so this workforce agility platform that is a part of the overall remit of Cornerstone allows organizations, specialists at scale, if you will, to identify skills gaps and development opportunities, provide multimodal learning experiences, and allow to close that workforce readiness gap in a variety of different ways. And that's where we live and breathe. AI at the center, and we're very, very open. So part of my remit is to make sure that the platform is open. We believe we can deliver the entire portfolio to you, but at the same time, we also understand you may have made other choices, and we want to embrace those as well.
Yeah, so you can plug it together. You're also shifting. I see you as more a talent platform now. Is that a misconception?
No, it's always been a talent platform. I like to say it this way: we're very at scale. If you think about the scale we're talking about here, but we're not going to do payroll, we're not going to do time, and we're not going to do benefits. Other than that, we are a specialist at scale. And when we think about talent development and the specialty related to that, it's very much focused on that readiness gap.
Got it. So what's changing? What's new? And what do you want to share with us?
So one of the things that we've done as a part of Cornerstone is we've created an idea that the readiness gap and the skills gap itself is composed of skills, expectations, and visibility. And we've made some very unique acquisitions that are part of that. The most recent being Skyhive, as well as Tailspin, which is the immerse component. Skyhive was the skills component with massive labor data. Last year, we did the skills confidence gap, which was explained, and we did a conversation around that, you and I, the difference between how people felt about adoption versus how they felt about, or how the employer was making an investment. This year, using Skyhive data, we released a very, very unique report. I believe the first of its kind related to longitudinal data over 5 years around the skills themselves, the state of the skills economy. And it took into account government data, postings, resume data, a variety of other things. And we found some very, very unique things related to that around the skills that are in demand and some things that might be surprising along those lines. And now the next question would be, like what, Mike?
Funny you should say that. And the conclusions were.
So what we know is that the data analytics skills have grown dramatically. The UK ranks third in that as an example. Obviously, AI and machine learning job postings have increased by 6%, 65%. Gen AI postings have surged. Augmented reality, AR, VR as well, and then green skills. But the real interesting finding here is that human skills, what other people call soft skills, are truly in demand, 3 times more in demand than the actual data skills themselves. And things like collaboration, communication, and problem solving. And we find that a very interesting result.
It is. I call them generative skills. I hate the word soft skills because they're not soft at all. I use generative skills because they're the building blocks of all other skills. And I think that's what we're seeing, isn't it? That's the uptick because we need more and more skills. So we need the fundamentals in order to build those necessary additional skills across our portfolios at work. And it's not that we're
Agreed.
looking to go on.
I was going to say, and the really interesting thing, now you got me on the bandwagon here, Nigel, is that generationally, we're finding. Remember, part of this research, which is freely available on the website, part of this research is about resume data, and what we found was a generational difference in representing those human skills. So at the Gen Y, Gen Z level, it's much more diminished than it is, say, at the other older generation level. So this focus and this drumbeat of you've got to have digital skills is coming, I think, at the expense of those human skills. So one of the investments that we need to make within talent development, to your point around it being a baseline, is those human skills, particularly in the next generation of workers.
Yes, and I think they're going to demand those skills as well. I think it's not just employer pull; there'll be employee push as well. Because if you see the world accelerating ahead of you, you need those basic generative skills that will help you keep on on the train as it's moving down the track. So
Highest on the
these are.
list was problem solving. So, I mean, think about that, right? So, yes, agree.
Thinking skills and just communication skills. How do you work with a team when everyone is differently enabled, but no one has got the full picture? All of those things are going to be absolutely critical in a world that is accelerating. So I think this stuff is very important.
And then how do you practice those things in a
Yes.
safe place? And that leads into our acquisition. And we just announced what we call Immerse Companion. But think of it as a safe place to practice some of those skills inside a virtual reality with an avatar that can have a conversation with you. And then you can evaluate that with the Gen AI laying underneath that. And then it's a safe place for you to practice and get feedback. It's the old stand and deliver, but now it's very personalized to the individual. We see that as the development effort against that human skill need.
And is that out or is it emerging?
Yes, we just released it last week at Unleash Paris. So we just announced it and we were showing it at Unleash Paris. So absolutely.
I think one of the great strengths of Gen AI is you have conversations with, when it could be a bot or whatever it is. But that idea that it's not just ask me a question, give me an answer, it's and explore that a little bit more. And what do you mean by that? And how can I clarify that? This is what you're doing writ large in a way, isn't it? It's an extended conversation to help clarify for the individual.
It absolutely is, with the advantage that you're actually interacting, and it's multimodal. It could be desktop, could be headset. We're not requiring a specific technology, but it's multimodal with an avatar that learns about you and is suited to you and helps you along those lines. And then for the organization, the evaluative step around how are we doing and where should we progress next. Human skills development is always safe space stuff, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You don't want to expose yourself to your manager or say something that you might come to regret. But you can do that with an avatar. You can say whatever you like, and you can get good direct feedback. And it's a kind of continuing process. It's not I'll do this now. No, I'm fixed. This is a continuing conversation, as your skills will always need to be under the microscope, updated, merged, moved one way or another. And so that's what you're doing. You're creating a kind of environment of continuous development.
Absolutely. And if you remember back to the old days, that'd be you and me, right? It was always a stand and deliver moment and you were nervous about it and you didn't get repeated efforts and those kinds of things, this is really, to me, the promise of both augmented reality, virtual reality, and Gen AI put together in a really unique way.
This is exciting. Mike, we'll put a QR code on the screen so people can download that report and look at it. And where can they find? Is that in the report? Is there information about the new avatar and the new system that you've launched?
No, the report is very much focused on the state of skills, and so, but we'll get you the QR code for the Immerse as well.
Excellent, because I think the two things go together, don't they? It's one is a statement, and the other is a response. Mike Bollinger, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, and the very best of luck. It's hotting up, isn't it? It feels like it's hotting up.
It does. It does indeed. Yep. Thanks for having me back. I always look forward to the conversation.
It's a real pleasure, Mike. A real pleasure. Thank you.
At TechWolf, we realised that HR didn't need another HR application. They needed relevant skill data. Our skill data infrastructure works in the background to not only connect HR data, but business systems where employees actually do their work and skills are demonstrated. Our advanced AI structures skill data into a tailored skill framework in the form of a taxonomy and mapping of your jobs to skills. TechWolf creates relevant, granular skill profiles for every employee. Our API then automatically gets that skill data into the systems where it can be used by the business. We also take privacy very seriously, and TechWolf is trusted by global companies.
It's the inimitable Rob Clark, Kate, and he's here with his usual roundup of sin, scandal, and learning news.
Learning is under increased scrutiny, and throughout 2023 and 2024, many L&D budgets have felt the pinch. Measuring the business impact of learning. Half now can, but access to data and stakeholder buy-in are thwarting progress. AI isn't very good at selling, yet. We take a look at a new sales-aware AI product. Crucial to L&D teams is the support of the C-suite. Learning is under increased scrutiny, and throughout 2023 and 2024, many L&D budgets have felt the pinch. Economic headwinds are negatively influencing L&D investment in new digital learning projects.
In many ways, it's a sign of maybe tightening belts overall. And I think that's put the pressure on L&D teams to some extent to articulate their value much more clearly. When you look at the sort of level of organizations who say that their budget is growing compared to those that say they're declining, you've got pretty much a split between 29% saying they're growing, 16% say they're declining, which is better than last year. But when you look at it historically, those numbers are sort of pretty much record lows when you look back. So, and overall, the vast majority of L&D budgets are stagnating. There is a pressure to do more with less or the same, and that's very clear in this year's results. So there is a little bit of a chill in the wind this year, and I expect that to go into next year based on the conversations we've been having with corporates overall. And when you look out to how people are responding to this sort of sense of how can I do more with less or the same, AI, particularly around content authoring, is a significant focus for the year ahead.
Is measuring the business impact of learning in danger of becoming exclusive to a select few? The Measuring the Business Impact of Learning report is in its 8th year and shows the persistent challenges L&D has getting to grips with measuring what it does. Almost all say they want to measure business impact and think it's possible. Around half say they can, but only a quarter actually have a budget to do so.
As you say, everybody wants to do this. That's, on the one hand, 97%, but actually only 27% have actually got budget to do this. And that's a gap which is you look at and you go, how is that possible? How can organizations not want to know what they're spending their L&D budgets on? And particularly in this world now where business is entirely data driven in terms of its decision making in literally every department. And it's the question is, why has this not arrived to the same extent in L&D? And I think there are a few reasons for that. One of the key things that's coming out of this is the measure about the pressure from leadership. And when we first started looking at this, the pressure from leadership was something like 35%. It was very low, and it grew very quickly to over 60%. But it's literally got stuck there. What that means is that 40% of organizations are receiving no pressure from leadership to actually do this, to measure the business impact of learning. So it's hardly a wonder that the budgets aren't coming into place. But what we're seeing is this disparity between what we're calling the haves and the have-nots, those that are doing it, and we see this alignment to them being seen as strategic inside the organization versus an L&D department that's seen much more as a shared service and a sort of a supplier of learning, if you like.
Gen AI is a genuinely transformative technology that no sales organisation can ignore. At the same time, generic AI is actually very bad at selling. It can save time, but it won't get you a competitive edge by summarising calls and writing bland emails in bulk. So how can sales teams unlock the potential of Gen AI? Imparter is a sales technology and training provider that equips Gen AI models with companies' product and services data and sales language.
We have about 1.5 million words of research and content around how you sell at every stage of the customer journey, from becoming aware they have a need, to choosing the right solution, to worrying about what might go wrong, negotiating and committing to the deal, adopting a solution, renewing it and expanding it, all around there. And also a set of advanced skills and more base level skills like forecasting and territory management, sales management, sales leadership. There are about 180 skills in total across that whole area that you need to know about to be a good salesperson. Nobody needs all of them, but if AI is to help you, it does. So we've basically equipped AI with that information, and we look for the absolute right piece of information or several right pieces of information that are relevant to what you're trying to do in the conversation with the AI right now. And we feed that in at exactly the right moment and in exactly the right way with a highly engineered prompt that makes sure that essentially you're talking to an AI that understands your business and understands how to sell and how to negotiate and account manage and all the rest of it.
Learning News Bulletins are sponsored by CLO 100, which aims to elevate heads of learning into strategic positions, and we appreciate its support. And that's it for October. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Back to Kate and Nigel.
Are you ever in meetings or events where one or two people dominate? It doesn't have to be that way. You can get an equal voice for your people through liberating structures. Liberating structures are 33 structures that give people a full equal voice. Check them out on www.happy.co.uk and type in liberating structures. We do them online, we do them in the classroom, and they are brilliant.
Today, we're going to look at a very, very interesting report by BCG, Boston Consulting Group, and others. Martin, what's it called? What's it all about? And what's important about it?
Thanks, Nigel. And it is called How Work Preferences Are Shifting in the Age of Gen AI. And I think the clue's in the title there. It's basically, this is a big, Boston Consulting Group do big research studies. And this is based on responses from over 150,000 workers from 188 countries. So it looks like they've got the globe covered when it comes to this bit of research. And
probably no one from North Korea, but everywhere else is covered, I reckon.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting about it is, it's big. So therefore, you've got lots of data here, and you can slice and dice it according to your geography. So wherever you are, dear viewer, in the world, there is probably a way to slice and dice this data to give you some really interesting insights that you can hold up as a mirror to your organization, just to see how your changing employee experience and learner experience is looking based, up against what this data is telling us. Because effectively, it's talking about how work perspectives are changing, what people view work to be and be like. And ultimately, I think it's about, I'd boil it right down to two words, and they would be employee experience. Now, if you're in learning, I think increasingly that sort of experience is broader than just learning. It's the whole work experience, really, is becoming a lot more of an issue than it ever was. So really interesting stuff in here.
There is. It's got some main points, but what struck me is this idea, first of all, the statement that the workforce, the job seekers are in the ascendancy and they hold the upper hand. That's new. And the second thing is that companies, it's not good enough just to reskill your workforce. You've got to reskill your workforce and create a very attractive package to entice others in, but to stop that reskilled workforce immediately disappearing off to the competition because they've got better opportunities there. So it's a complex problem of investing in people, but investing in the company and the infrastructure and the value system and all these things to make the place better. And that, to me anyway, this is very, very good news. If for the first time, there's a definite return in making work better and more attractive, essentially. Do you agree? Is that what you felt came from the report?
Yes, and I think in some senses the employee journey and that part of the employee journey and that story around what workers are looking for is an interesting one. I think it's always interesting when research suggests that the prospective worker holds the cards. Sometimes I would put some caveats around that because it might be certain skills, might be certain industry sectors that in which that is more the case. But I do think I think it's really interesting though to be taking note of what that front end experience looks like, because A, that's really important, and B, that then links through to what happens next. And I think what happens next is quite interesting because that is actually also a story that is, I think, reasonably well told in this research. They have a really lovely set of charts that, because they've been doing this research for about 10 years, they can plot some of the factors that are more important to employees when it comes to work. And so what you get is a chart with 4 columns and a kind of tracking line that goes up and down based on the importance of certain factors. And in this report, what's really interesting is that job security is the number one factor. It's really important to people. And that's followed by good work-life balance, financial compensation, good relationships with colleagues, and learning and career development. Now, learning and career development has really shot up, and so has job security this year. So I think that...
Yes. Job security was down at 10 years ago. Job security was at the bottom of the chart, essentially. I can get jobs. It's not a problem. Number one, yeah. And learning and development, which wasn't even in the chart in 2014, didn't even make 10, is now coming in at number 5. It's very interesting, isn't it? These are big shifts, aren't they, Martin?
Yeah, big shifts. And also the research goes some way to explaining why these shifts are taking place. And I think that's quite important. It's very of the moment. Now, the research is suggesting that generative AI is driving that emphasis on job security, because clearly it's unclear what the impact is going to be of that technology on jobs. And also it's driving the desire to have, driving the interest in learning and career development, because people want to make sure they have the right skills. So actually, if you're in learning and development and you're looking at this research, I think it's quite a heartening story for you. It's playing into your hands. So I would definitely, for that reason alone, I would look at this report. But so we've got basically Gen A now driving the agenda around job security and learning and career development in a way that it clearly, it wasn't here 15 months ago. It wasn't such an issue. So, but now it is.
I also think that meaningfulness of job has crept in 2023 at the bottom of the list, but it's not even vaguely mentioned in the last 10 years. Suddenly it is about meaning. And and related to that is an interesting statistic. 54% of workers would turn down an attractive job if they had a negative impression of the company during the interview process. Again, I find that fascinating. So their interest in the values, work-life balance, the kind of people they're going to meet, as well as the nature of the job and the package that they're being offered. Important shifts, I think.
Yeah, and I think I would add, if there was one other part of this report I would look at, I'd encourage viewers to have a look at. There's a chart on age and the factors that shape work preferences based on age, and I think this is fascinating. And I could be joining dots that shouldn't be joined, but I'm going to suggest what they might be. For basically around the 20 to 30 age categories, the most important factors are job security, learning and career development, good work-life balance, good relationships with colleagues, appreciation for work. At the other end of the spectrum, for people that are between 50 and over 60, those factors are good relationships with colleagues, good relationships with superiors, appreciation for your work, interesting job content. Now, I can't help feeling, these are the dots that I'm about to join, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but it feels to me like there's this huge opportunity for people who are further down the career journey to really start to input into those at the beginning. Because the factors that people want who are 30 years into their work really do link to that role of supporting people who are much newer in their career. Now, I don't know if that's what this chart says to me. So it might say completely different things to you, but I think it's worth looking at some of these other charts in this report, because I think they're kind of giving us some clues as to what the employee experience could be when looked at through different lenses. And one of those lenses is age. And I think it's just an interesting lens to look through the employee experience.
Yes, I agree with you. It's also saying that essentially the workforce is optimistic. They're not afraid of AI. They don't see it as terrifying. Only 5% think that their job will no longer exist. Most have acknowledged something like 80% 75% acknowledge that their job will be affected or transformed, but they're not afraid of that. They will accommodate that. And I think the point you're making, which is a really important point, a lot of people will see that as a great advantage. My job will be disrupted. I've got a chance to motor here. Let's go for it, rather than, oh my goodness, this could damage me, this could leave me behind. They're actually, the report seems to indicate that most people are on the upside of all of this. And the fact that only 5% think that they're going to be jobless or their job is going to completely disappear, it's very interesting. And that seems to be the way that it's panning out by anecdotal evidence and the limited data that they've got. It's not going to take out jobs. It's going to enhance jobs. It's going to make people more efficient. And it's going to give people a chance to do much better than they can do at the moment and take away some of the drudgery of their job so they can create meaning, find meaning at work. So all of these things are linked, aren't they? There's this issue about technology, about jobs, about what work means, about how work is structured. All these things are kind of coalescing around the ideas in this report. So to me, anyway, it's like a really exciting next 5 years, not a terrible Armageddon in the next 5 years, where work will definitely change. But for most people, it will change for the better. And for most people, it will create opportunities rather than take opportunities away. Would you accept that?
I would. I think my final word on it would be that I think the global picture is interesting too. So I think, it can be, we can tend to be quite insular in terms of looking at the domains and the geographies that we work in. And it's the emerging economies that are really leading the way on using Gen AI, according to this research. So I think that's also quite interesting. I think the UK, for
India,
example, lags miles behind. So I think I completely agree with everything you've just said, but I think, it's time for learning and development to get its hands dirty. Yeah, but also just helping people understand the technology and how they can use it, and just be far more digitally literate and able to use data and those kind of skills. I think there needs to be a lot more focus around that, and quickly, in order for workers in some parts of the world to really kind of upskill, keep their jobs safe, and also be more at the forefront in organisations, rather than these emerging economies that will potentially come snapping at the heels of other organisations because they've advanced more quickly.
That's a great point to leave. So you'll see the crawl on the screen. Please read the report. It's very, very interesting, well put together, well researched, with in-depth amounts of data, so you can kind of trust the conclusions. So Martin, appreciate you drawing our attention to that. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll be back soon with yet another report.
Indeed. Thanks, Nigel.
Upskill and inform your learners with Mind Tools for Business. Empower your people to thrive at work and help them step up and meet everyday workplace challenges with confidence. Our toolkit provides unlimited access to thousands of quality assured resources, all in one place. It's easy to use and on demand, anytime, anywhere. Experience stress-free onboarding with dedicated client partner support. And get access to our library of industry insight and expert analysis. Perform, manage, lead with Mind Tools for Business. Visit mindtoolsbusiness.com to find out more.
It's my huge pleasure to be here with Jenny Muffwer today. Jenny, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
It's so great to be here, Joe. Thank you for the invitation. So I'm Jenny Muffwer. I'm a learning and development consultant. I've been in learning and development for well over 16 years, and my particular focus is really helping people to bring their very best to the workplace. And of course, within that is women, and today's topic, menopausal women.
Absolutely. So October is Menopause Awareness Month. Obviously, there's a part of the population that have an interest in this topic, but why should it be on everyone's radar, including organisations?
Yeah, such a great first question. So I think, first of all, I'm wondering how many people watching this really know where is menopause. Like, when we're saying menopause, we might have a thought that we're talking about older women, people near retirement, when actually a menopausal transition can happen anywhere, typically from 35 years onwards. So actually, menopausal, including perimenopause, menopause and postmenopause, is the fastest growing demographic in the UK of talent. So that's why I would say it should be on everyone's agenda, because we know there is keeping great talent, the skills agenda. Well, of course, a big population of that is menopausal women.
Okay, so what happens then during a menopausal transition? If we're going from 35 to post-menopause, which presumably is the rest of a woman's life, what are those stages? What happens at that point?
Yeah, so to begin with, so to go right back to basics, when women are born with a set amount of ovaries, and during, I'm going to say typical, because obviously every woman is different, but we're going to talk like broadly typically, a woman will go through puberty, start having periods, and then there'll be a cycle of around 28 days where ovaries are released. Now, there's quite a few ovaries that get released. So what happens is the brain sends a signal down to say, let's go, it's ovary time, and that starts to happen. Now, when we hit perimenopausal age, which is typically anything from, a typical range is between 35 to 45 that you can start. So it can be as young as 35. And of course, there's going to be other differences, such as if a woman has had breast cancer or had to have a medical induced menopause, then it might even be earlier. So at this point in time, there's not as many ovaries then. So the brain is going, like, getting even stronger signals. It's like, come on, team, like, let's go, let's get this thing done. So the stronger the signals, this creates then a bouncing effect of progesterone, and there's not as much estrogen as well. So perimenopausal is again around a 10-year period. So if you think like you go through puberty around 10 years, and then at the end of perimenopause is about another 10 years. So it's not a couple of years, it's quite a big chunk of time that this process is happening where there's less ovaries. And then we hit menopause. So menopause is the point that a woman hasn't had a period for a year. So although it's a point in time, it's actually, of course, kind of the point is, haven't had a period for a year, and then you move into postmenopausal, and that's when then hormones have kind of leveled out a little bit.
Okay, so what are some of the myths associated with menopause? I think you've just got hit one about the perimenopause and about how long that takes and when that might start. But what are some others that workplace decision makers might need to know about?
So first of all, that it's not something that's happening near retirement. It's happening to quite a big amount of your workforce. The second thing, that it's not just about hot flushes and the change. There's quite a lot that is happening, both in the body and also in the brain as well. So it's only very, very recently that research has come out in terms of actually what is happening in the brain and what's the shape of the brain and what's happening through that. So this is why it's really important for organisations to understand this, because there's to be able to support women through this, so to get women to be the very best that they can. Of course, this is at the point that they're probably starting to really raise up the career ladder, starting to come with more creative ideas, coming with more sales, whatever your organisation is. You want to make sure that those women can still perform at their very best. And research has shown, so the CIPD did a study where they found 900,000 women left the workplace due to menopausal symptoms.
Wow.
So some of the myths, therefore, are that it's just hot flushes, we just need to have better aircon. I'm sorry to bust that myth, but that's not the thing. It's around helping women to really understand what's going on. So I don't know about you, I started perimenopause at 40, and I was told, oh no, you're far too young for that. And actually, so that was the belief. I bought into that belief until I started to understand more and realised, no, all these anxieties that I was experiencing, all these augmented emotions that I was experiencing, was actually perimenopause. Once I started to get educated on it, once I could start to talk to other people about it, I could start to make dietary changes, I could start to make supplementary changes, start to make changes that actually have had a great impact on my health, and therefore have had a greater impact on my ability to also be able to create an impact within my workplace as well. So yeah, myths in terms of age, and then myths also in terms of it's just a physical. Actually, there's a lot mental taking place as well.
Yeah. So I've been reading recently about how there are estrogen receptors all over the body, including the brain. So this is what you were saying about the brain changing, which is really important. And just understanding much more depth about, I read that there are something like up to 90 odd symptoms that could be perimenopause. And as someone who has, I've got a chronic muscle condition, it's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I've been feeling really rubbish this year, and I've blamed it all on the condition that I already have. And it's only when my mum said, do you think it could be menopause? I was like, oh no, have to do the deep dive into this now. Here we go. But you're right, it's interesting that actually we might be placing blame elsewhere, perhaps on stress associated with work or family life, which, you know, might still be the reality, but maybe it's the way we're coping with things. So tell us a little bit about what the UK government have pledged to make organisations support women.
Yeah, so I think you can go into two camps here. You can go into the camp of forward-facing organisations thinking we want to make sure that we bring the very best of our workplace, we value our talent, we value the skills, and therefore we want to be as inclusive as possible to ensure that we have the very best. You can do that, or you can get dragged along. So either way, this is going to affect you as an organisation. So the current UK government have pledged, so we don't know everything yet, as of the 30th of September 2024, they've pledged that every organisation over 250 people will need to have a menopause action plan. So this might be in the form of training, this might be in the form of policy, this might be in the form of support. Those are the things I think there will be. I think there will be awareness, there will be manager training, there will be guidance that needs to get created within organisations. So whilst under the Equality Act, menopause isn't a protected characteristic, it is in other ways. So first of all, age is, so it can be kind of a link to age, and also disability. So disability is also defined by something that you have a prolonged period of time where symptoms persist. Well, I would say 10 years is probably a decent amount of time. So there are people that are, could fall foul within the UK law if you're not careful as well. Yeah. So this isn't about just thinking about it for society. Actually, law is coming. There's going to be guidance. There's going to be support plans that you need to put in place. So thinking about it now is going to help you for when that does come and hit.
Excellent, especially being forward thinking, and that sounds like a really good place to be. There you go, it's a classic moment. I was just thinking of a particular word, couldn't think of it. Brain fog, thank you very much. So finally, let's wrap this up with what is L&D's role in this as part of the organisation, as part of these forward-looking approaches?
I love being in L&D teams that are with the business and having the difficult conversations. And one of the things that I love to do is to say, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Might be we're looking at our gender gap and we don't like the way that is. We're looking at trying to create better ideas, more diversity on our leaders. What's the problem we're trying to solve? And this can be a way to then looking to solve that. So first of all, L&D, we need to look at what's the training that we can deliver within our managers, but why? And the first step, very simply, is to think about awareness. What is it? And I can tell you that I have trained many men who have been really receptive to it, because it's not just women that they're working with, it's wives, it's daughters, it's mothers, it's aunts, it's neighbours. Like, they suddenly have an awareness around them. They're like, thank God, now I've got like more information and understanding. And the second thing is to open it up in one-to-ones. So a very simple way that you can do this as a manager is to simply start having more well-being and curious conversations. What's happening for you this week? And how can I best support you? Or how can I help you to be at your best this week? We don't need to be talking about perimenopause, but it's starting to open up a conversation that is broader than, I need this by Thursday, what's the deadline? What else? What's happening? How can I help you? We need this by Thursday. How can I help you be at your best this week? Well, actually, you can help me be at my best because I need more focus time, or I need more. Yeah. You can start to then have those conversations. It's opening it up.
Lovely. Sounds amazing advice. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to come on this topic, and we shall investigate it further, no doubt. Jenny, where can people find you if they'd like to look you up?
So I am available on LinkedIn. That's my platform of choice. So you want to look for Jenny Mutloir, or my company is called bright-trainers.com. So that's bright-trainers.com.
Thank you very much, Jenny. An amazing conversation.
Thank you.
So, Kate, one of the things we thought we'd do this month, give it a go, because you've been in and about and around and up and down and everywhere. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What were the great events that you attended? And what did you learn? That's what I'm really interested in. What did you learn?
So I always try and reflect on key takeaways from an event, and it goes back to the sort of the Twitter days of kind of curating and trying to cover these things. So that's something that I've carried forward with me as I've progressed in my career, and something that I do internally as well. So looking at that market intelligence is a big part of my day-to-day job. And it was really interesting because the event season is, there are the industry events, and then you've got a load of big vendor events. So Oracle have Cloud World in the US, Workday has Rising, Lattice have just had their big event, SAP is still to come, UKG I think have just had theirs. So it's those sorts of events as well, sort of, and trying to aggregate some of the trends, I think, across. And the pattern that I've seen this autumn is Oracle came out hard on the generative AI side of things at Cloud World in the second week of September. And they started talking about agents and the fact that for HR, obviously Oracle is enormous. And the fact that for HCM that they were releasing sort of 50 agents which are automating HR tasks, and there are a variety of things. There's a long list of what that 50 look like. And it was just super interesting because it shifted the goalposts, I think, in terms of the conversation. And I think it accelerated the conversation around generative AI within, HR talent and learning as well, in a way that I think has taken some people by surprise. I think we knew some of this was coming, but I think people didn't realize it was maybe as close as it was. And so what I saw from that, and then Workday have released their Illuminate, which is their sort of Gen AI layer. And then we got into HR tech in the US, and that pulled a lot of those threads together. So some of the existing conversation around generative AI, but also some of this newer stuff. And it felt actually like it was moving very, very quickly. And there's a lady who's a great analyst in the States. So Josh Burson does his big kind of Trailblazers session at HR Tech. But Stacey Harris has taken over the Sapient Insights research, which has been running for 27 years. So started by the great Lexi Martin. And she has very robust data, which is excellent. Obviously, she's got that longitudinal input as well. But her angle is sort of, rather than from the hype and the tech trends, it's what she calls the voice of the customer. And what's really interesting to see is this kind of almost the arms race that we're seeing now around the generative AI piece. You've got Microsoft turning on nuclear power plants that have been mothballed to power
just for the power, yes,
So I mean, it's and people don't really talk about the sustainable side of things. It's something that John Fletcher actually does talk about a lot, but you don't hear many experts talking or analysts talking about the sustainability side of things. But I digress. But there's this arms race happening on the vendor side, and I kind of, the way that I phrased it is to say that, you know, the train's left the station, but the buyers are still standing on the platform. And there are a lot of things that are 42 elections, I think, something like that worldwide this year. Obviously, the US election being a big one in November. But alongside that, kind of delaying or impacting buying decisions and investment decisions and planning around technology is this kind of, I'm not sure what to do around AI, and I'm not, and I run a bank, and it's how safe is it and all the rest of it, and the governance piece. So you've got this really interesting kind of dynamic where you've got such exciting new technology happening. And, Burson last week at Unleash was talking about digital twins, and Cornerstone released our Immerse companion, our Immerse AI companion. There's all of these exciting things going on, but I don't think many organizations are in a position to necessarily jump in with both feet,
or add it up and know what's in it for them. It's all very good, but it's what do I actually do here, and what will the benefits be, and is it going to be cost effective for me? So I think that these are really interesting points. Okay, talk about conferences. What's coming up? There's a lot coming up as well. So not only has there been a lot, but then the big conferences season kicks in with CIPD in Manchester. Is that right?
Yes. Let me just get my list up. We've got the CIPD on the 6th and 7th of November. So that's an annual conference in Manchester. Devlin, which I wish I could get to, but I can't, is happening in Las Vegas on the 6th to 8th of November. The Learning Technologies Awards are on the 13th of November. So always keen to see who walks away with those and who's been doing what. Online Educa Berlin, Shaping the Future of Learning, is on the 26th and 27th of November, obviously in Berlin. I'm rounding us off for the year, the Learning Conference in Orlando on the 4th to the 6th of December. So I guess I'm interested to see what some of the talking points are and what some of the reflections are there, because what Unleash tried to do last week as a kind of step on almost, even though they obviously the timing, everything's planned in advance. But what they tried to do is find real use cases around generative AI, which I think is really important, and it being applied in situ, in reality. But also what John Fletcher talked about at Learning Live, the LPI's event at the beginning of September, is to think about tasks, but don't just automate what's already being done. Is anybody sitting back and going, do we really need this? Can we reimagine this? And I think that's the inflection point is, cloud repeated a lot of what was done on premise when we had that shift. It obviously changed again from a tech perspective, but in terms of the what was being done, was very similar. Mobile, again, has sort of made everything smaller, but again, repeated a lot of the same processes when it comes to HR. Yep. And so, but Gen AI really can change the game.
Transform.
And it sounds a bit
transform.
But I think John's point is a really, really valid one, and a really, really important one that we need to reflect on is actually, if we take a step back and we can do things differently, what are the things that we want to carry on doing? What are the things that we could park? And what are the things that we could reinvent or start anew? And I feel like nobody's done that whiteboard exercise,
No, I think you're right. So I'm actually looking forward. Next program's on the 28th of November. And what new revelations will we bring to our audience? We don't know, because it's still unfolding in front of us. So, Kate, good to talk to you. Thanks very much. See you next month, everybody.
Bye-bye.